Radical Empathy Forum. I'm Edwin Rutsch, Director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy and founder of the Empathy Tent. And I want to thank all the candidates who are here in the front row for coming to this event. This is sort of a different type of event and a little bit out of the ordinary. So we really want to thank you for kind of reaching out and really going beyond the call of duty here to try out this empathy process. It's going to be very unique. This hasn't been done before, so this is our prototype, and so thank you for everyone for coming. So I want to give you an overview of what we're going to do. We are going to start with a little bit of introductions, thank yous to the people who helped put this event on, and then we have a short 10-minute video from Josh Kornbluth that he'll be showing. And then we're going to give an introduction, like how to do an empathy circle. And we're going to have two groups of candidates coming up and taking part in two different groups taking part in empathy circles. And we're going to go till about 5:30, a little bit after, and we have the room till 6 o'clock. So we're going to try to move fairly quickly so we have maximum amount of time for the candidates to talk, because that's what we really want to hear is what they have to say on our question of how might we build a more empathic and caring culture. So next, I'd like to introduce our co-hosts, who just will say a few words about their skills. Yep. I want to take one of the.
Hi, I'm Ross Irwin. I'm the internal vice president of Bridge USA at Berkeley. And first of all, we just want to say thank you very much to the Empathy Tent and Edwin and the whole team for putting this together and creating a space where we can get together and actually start to become more of a community. And we also want to say thank you to all the candidates for coming out and participating in this. Gives us a lot of hope that you all are willing to participate in something like this and don't just want to go through the whole cutthroat politics game. And we'd love to work with you in the future to really better our local community, because we think, all politics is local. We'd love to help you, and we'd love for you to help us. Just for like a quick Bridge USA explanation, we're basically a nonpartisan or a multi-partisan political organization, and our purpose is to get people of all political backgrounds and identities to talk to each other and to understand each other and to work together, because the nation is currently very divided, and we think that the only way to move forward productively is to be able to talk and disagree peacefully with those that you do not agree with. So that's my little spiel. Thank you all for coming.
Okay, thank you. So working together with Bridge USA has been amazing. Jonathan, who I worked with to really coordinate this, they're so responsible. It's like they show up on time. I felt really good just to be working with them, because you can count on them. So it's been a great experience. As well as we want to thank our co-sponsors. We have a whole group of co-sponsors that have kind of helped kind of get the word out about the event. And thanks a lot to them for that. We have, here we go. About the Empathy Tent, I wanted to share a little bit about us, the Empathy Tent. So the Empathy Tent started at Occupy Wall Street here in Berkeley, and we've been working to build a culture of empathy here in Berkeley and beyond. And we have a social media community, as well as have been going to some of the battles of Berkeley. If you know the left versus right, the street fights, these photographs are on Sprout Plaza, and both of them. And we offered empathic listening to both sides, and we have our team here. You can see the ones with empathy T-shirts. Thank you very much. So thanks to them for having helped organize this. So we have been trying to foster constructive dialogue between parties. With the Empathy Tent, we go out and we offer listening and constructive dialogue, as well as empathy circles, and also training and mediation. And we've had mediations between the political left and the political right. And we're now, we've been sort of working at the community level, and we now want to work also in the political level, and that's why we've invited all of you here. And a lot of people have said, you know, why are you doing this in the politics? Politics is a cutthroat, dog-eat-dog world. You know, why, you know, that even a politician I talked about, you know, he didn't really think there was any benefit in doing, you know, this at this level, because it's just dog-eat-dog. And also a lot of community members are seeing politics as kind of from a cynical point of view, that there's no space for empathy, and we disagree, and we want to move, you know, empathy and care into politics, like Bridge USA. So there is actually bipartisan support for a more empathic world. This is Barack Obama. He said it seems like we've got an empathy shortage, an empathy deficit more serious than the federal budget deficit. We've become so cynical that it almost seems naive to believe that we can understand each other across the gulf of race, class, region, and religion. So his campaign was centered around empathy. He talked about it, you know, just continuously on the campaign trail. The media didn't pick up much on it, didn't talk about it, but it was very central to his campaign. George Bush, he says, this was at the Dallas shooting, where they had the memorial for the Dallas police officers that were shot and killed. He said, at the memorial, he said, at our best, we practice empathy, imagining ourselves in the lives and circumstance of others. This is the bridge across our nation's deepest divisions, and it is not merely a matter of tolerance, but of learning from the struggles and stories of our fellow citizens and finding our better selves in the process. So that's, again, bipartisan support from the Republican side and from Hillary Clinton. Now, Hillary Clinton, she talked a little bit about empathy before while she was doing her campaign, but since she lost, she wrote a book about the experience, and she's really gone into seeing the importance of empathy. She's now actually advocating for radical empathy. And she says empathy should not only be at the center of our individual lives, our families, our communities, it should be at the center of our public life, our policy, and our politics. And I know we don't always think of politics and empathy as going hand in hand, but they can, and more than that, they must. So I think this kind of shows the bipartisan support that there is for empathy, and that we can bring these skills, these practices, these attitudes into politics and start bridging the divides. And this can be really really a foundation for the nation working together more effectively. So with that, while we were organizing this event, we came across a video just came out about the importance of empathy, and we asked Josh Kornbluth, if you want to come down, who is a local entertainer, artist, performing artist, and he put together a video, 10-minute video, if you want to come up to the stage or grab a mic, and you can just, oh, you don't need, well, for the recording, it's be good.
Hi, I'm really honored that you're showing my video at this incredibly cool event. This video, which is called The Empathy Circuit, is the first in a series that I'm planning to do over the course of the next couple of years. This series is called Citizen Brain, and in the series I try to connect social justice issues with brain science. And one of the things that was really a challenge for me in this video will be the others, that I'm trying to make it equally compelling to pretty much any political persuasion, and not just to my Berkeley progressive bubble, as much as I love my Berkeley progressive bubble and love being inside it. So that's what's happening in this video. It's trying to reach as many people as possible. If you like it, you can find it and share it on the Facebook and YouTube. and also Vimeo. So that's it, right? Cool.
Yeah, that's just great. Thanks. Or show it, and thanks for that.
There's a tiny circuit that can save the world. It's in your brain. It makes empathy. Now, we desperately need that circuit these days since we're facing enormous challenges that require all of us to work together to solve them, and empathy is what allows us to get along with one another. But just now, when we need it the most, we're actually losing empathy. There's an empathy gap, and people are noticing.
Empathy.
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 The best companies can, quickly empathize.
That's the essence of empathy.
We've always had that segment of society that lacks empathy.
Sarah Conrath at Indiana University has done a study showing that American college students have been getting less and less empathetic, with the sharpest drops coming since the year 2000. So how do we fix this? The answer comes from the very latest in neuroscience, and I'll get to that in a bit. But first, what exactly is empathy? Empathy is when you imagine what it might feel like to be in someone else's shoes. This can be really hard to do. Like, for example, right now, I'm in my wife's shoes. And it feels really awful. Gotta switch to sensible pumps. We humans have been empathizing since, well, before we even had shoes. Compared to other animals, we weren't so good at doing things like leaping or having claws. We survived because we had this one superpower. We could imagine what another person might be feeling. This allowed us to work really well in groups, so we could do stuff like farming and hunting and such.
Humans are really social creatures, and to live and survive, we believe we need empathy. So it's not enough to have just physical survival on your own. For a human, we have to live in groups, and we have to cooperate and get along. And so it's important to know when someone feels sad, for example, or is in pain, and empathy helps us to share that person's feelings and to help them. We also think it's really important to share other humans' positive emotions, and positive emotions play a really important role in social life. They are at the foundation of human relationships. They help us to stay connected to others for years and decades of our lives. And those kinds of relationships are crucial to survival.
Not that we're the only animals who have empathy. So do some of the other big-brained creatures, like the great apes, along with elephants and whales and dolphins. Those other animals have one kind of empathy, emotional empathy. They instinctively put themselves in another dolphin's flippers. We humans have emotional empathy too, but we also have a second kind of empathy, a kind that lets us use our experiences as well as our instincts so we can better imagine things from someone else's perspective. Empathy can sound like kind of a mushy concept, but no.
Empathy isn't mushy, it is hard science.
Neuroscientists like Dr. Bruce Miller first discovered the empathy circuit when they were working with patients who had a particular kind of dementia called frontotemporal dementia, or FTD. Many of them lose their empathy.
Imagine an illness when the first manifestation of this is that you don't care about your children, your partner, your loved ones. When someone suffers an illness, you don't care. This breaks down everything about our humanness, our human connection. So that connects us to people is suddenly disappearing.
When brain scientists like Bruce Miller and his colleague Bill Seeley were studying people with FTD, they noticed that certain parts of their brains had shut down. They looked at where their empathy wasn't, and that showed them where empathy was supposed to be. And that's when they discovered the empathy circuit.
Regions in this circuit help us to detect other people's feelings and then produce an emotion in response to those people's emotions. So for example, there's parts of the temporal pole and the amygdala that are really important in helping us to understand other people's experiences and emotions. And these systems project to the anterior cingulate cortex that then generates this emotional reaction throughout the body, through the autonomic nervous system and the face. And that system produces this emotional reaction. Really important structure in the system is the insula. And the insula is a part of the brain that helps us to represent our internal states. So it's not enough to just have the brain produce the emotional reaction, but then our brain has to represent how the body has responded and monitor those internal cues. And once we access those internal feelings, we can better gauge our internal states and then act empathically.
This is a circuit we never realized existed. This is a circuit that has grown as the human species has grown.
So how exactly does empathy work? let's say I'm hanging out with you. You know what? We can use a visual aid here. Could you just tilt your chin just, yeah, no more. Okay. And let's say I start to get upset. Now you start to empathize. You pick up on my emotion and you start reflecting it. And not just in your brain. The more you empathize, the more your whole body can get in sync with mine. Facial expression, heartbeat, breathing, posture. Now you go further. You try to comfort me, because you're obviously such a cool person, and it works. But what if you don't empathize with me? Wow, and I thought you and I were buds? And what if it's not just you and me? What if it's a whole lot of us? Well then, eventually our empathy circuits will actually start to get weaker, and we might become less empathetic to the next person we encounter. We retreat to our own little groups, our family and friends, the people we consider us as opposed to them. And everyone outside of that group becomes the other. Society breaks down. The collective empathy circuit is broken. And we don't know why, but we start to feel off. It's because we're not connecting to our fellow humans. We want to reach out, to empathize. It's in our nature. But our empathy circuits are weak. So we tend to connect less and less, especially with people who are outside of our little group, till we reach a point where, because we're so divided, we have all these terrible problems, and also because we're so divided, we can't work together to solve them. Okay, now that I've completely bummed you out, here's the good news. We can fix this. We can actually strengthen our empathy circuits. If you're old like me, you probably remember 8-minute abs.
And just crunch right up. My feet are on the ground.
Well, there's a simple exercise you can do every day to strengthen your empathy circuit. You could call it 8-minute EMPS. You know, EMPS for empathy. I'll work on it. The exercise begins when you realize you're feeling a negative emotion towards someone. Like, let's say you're online at the supermarket and I cut you off. This makes you angry, and you realize that's what you're feeling. So now here's what you can do. First, take a deep breath, or two. Next, use your imagination to try to figure out why I was so rude to you. Maybe I just found out that my mom needs surgery. Maybe someone was just rude to me. You don't have to guess the right answer. I mean, usually you won't be able to. But just trying to imagine how I'm feeling and why will strengthen your empathy circuit. And when I pick up on your empathic vibes, then I might start building up my own empathy circuit. And then these waves of empathy can start to spread.
In a culture or in a society, empathy does emanate out from individuals. Those kinds of feeling states could rapidly be transmitted across people, communities, states, countries.
We don't have to love everyone. I mean, we can't. But we can almost always empathize with them. It starts with just a small leap of imagination between you and me. And then it spreads in more little leaps and more till it all adds up to one enormous leap, so powerful that it can solve seemingly insurmountable problems. It seems like it's not just like a cool thing or maybe a fun thing to learn about how your brain generates empathy and what the empathy circuit is, but it actually is an important thing. It's like an important thing as a citizen or as a parent or...
It's the most important thing.
Wait, say that again?
It's the most important thing, to be empathic.
When you see people with frontotemporal dementia, they are alone. They are isolated. And you can imagine a country losing this circuit. They will become isolated. They will become alone. And conversely, you can imagine what happens to a person who cares about others, who connects to other people. Their world gets bigger, richer.
So brain science can help us to save the world. It can help us to save humanity.
I think we must unite. There's so many things that threaten humanity that will make things worse if we aren't united, if we don't work together.
We can do this. We have to do it. We want to do it. You feel me? I think you do.
Right. Well, thank you for that, Josh, and for coming out and showing that. So here it is we see the benefits of empathy. It's in politics, but how do we do it? And one way that we can do it, and that's actually what we use in the empathy tent when we're doing mediations between the different sides, is what we call an empathy circle.